Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Today, we're pulling back the curtain on the so-called magic of AI and big tech. We're going to look way beyond the sleek devices and those seamless, perfectly designed interfaces you use every day to reveal the hidden physical, ethical, and human costs behind our screens. You know, our digital world often feels completely weightless, like it's totally invisible, but as we'll see today, the reality is anything but.
Okay, let's just jump right in with a massive question. Is artificial intelligence really an alien, disembodied brain? We constantly hear these utopian claims from the tech industry, framing AI as this clean, magical, almost inevitable force of nature. It's often portrayed to us as a floating, objective intelligence that just effortlessly absorbs data and spits out flawless logic, completely untethered from our messy physical world. But we really need to ask ourselves if that narrative is actually true, or if it's a carefully constructed myth.
To understand this, take a look at Google DeepMind's AlphaGo Zero. This is the system that learned to play the ancient game of Go entirely from scratch. Its creators actually described it as an alien intelligence, and they marveled at how it essentially discovered 3,000 years of human knowledge in just 72 hours. And honestly, when you look at this clean, abstract grid, you don't see any machines, you don't see human workers, and you certainly don't see a giant carbon footprint. It looks like pure, otherworldly magic, right?
Well, let's contrast that abstract myth of AlphaGo with the gritty physical reality. What we're looking at here are blueprints for a massive Google data center in the Dallas, Oregon. This single facility was estimated to use enough energy to power 82,000 homes. To put that into perspective, that's basically a city the size of Tacoma, Washington. It relies on public gas mains, sewer pipes, and federally subsidized high-voltage lines. So AI isn't just floating in the cloud. It requires massive, resource-hungry physical infrastructure that's heavily bankrolled by public utilities.
This brings us to a really crucial concept that our sources highlight called enchanted determinism. This term basically describes the illusion that AI is a magical, highly complex, and entirely objective system that just exists beyond the known physical world. But here's the thing, this framing is no accident. Portraying tech as enchanted or somehow too complex for us regular folks to understand deliberately shuts down public scrutiny. Think about it. If it's just magic, how can we possibly regulate it? This narrative completely obscures the human power dynamics, the inherent biases, and that vast physical infrastructure we just talked about that actually keeps these systems running.
So, this illusion of magic effectively hides the true supply chain of AI, which is, in reality, a highly extractive industry relying on planetary resources. Step 1 is quite literally mining the Earth. We're talking about extracting lithium from salt flats in Bolivia and tin from mines in Indonesia. Step 2 relies on an invisible army of human labor. There are crowd workers on platforms like Amazon Mechanical Turk or factory workers at Foxconn in China, doing the incredibly tedious, low-paid work required to make these systems appear automated to us. It all culminates in planetary extraction on a truly massive scale.
Looking a little closer at the details of this extraction, the reality is pretty stark. As we can see, these systems are heavily subsidized by public utilities and tax breaks, meaning the public is frequently footing the bill for the infrastructure. They also have an immense, often unacknowledged carbon footprint and energy drain. Furthermore, the industry exploits a massive shadow workforce of contract laborers who have little to no real job security. And fundamentally, these systems attempt to systematize the unsystematizable. They try to force messy, complex human identities and human emotions into rigid, computable boxes. Essentially, the tech companies are privatizing the immense profits while socializing the massive physical and environmental costs.
Which brings us to a deeply personal question. We've talked about minerals, we've talked about energy and labor, but what is the final resource being extracted here? Take a second to really think about it, because the answer directly involves you, your daily habits, and your life. We, and our digital traces, are the ultimate raw material being mined.
Consider the profound contrast between our physical selves and our digital selves. In the physical world, we have strong legal privacy, right? We have physical spatial boundaries, like the walls of our homes, and legal protections like the Fourth Amendment guarding against unreasonable searches. But your digital self? It operates in a completely different, almost Wild West reality. It's endlessly scraped for data, it's manipulated for commerce, and it leaves behind permanent digital traces that just never truly wash away. We are highly protected in person, but incredibly vulnerable in cyberspace.
And the line between the two has become incredibly blurred. Take this fascinating quote from U.S. Supreme Court Chief Justice John Roberts in the landmark case Riley v. California, which actually ruled that police need a warrant to search a cell phone. He noted that cell phones are now such a pervasive part of daily life that, literally, a proverbial visitor from Mars might conclude they were an important feature of human anatomy.
We are so deeply connected to our devices now that searching a phone is no longer just looking at a physical object. It's looking into the deepest extensions of our minds and our private lives. So, how is this profound digital vulnerability actually exploited in the real world? Well, the sources outline three pretty stark examples. First, a Cambridge study demonstrated that mathematical analysis of facial data could predict people's political affiliations and sexual orientation with alarming accuracy. Even more unsettling is a Facebook study that deliberately altered the news feeds of nearly 700,000 users to test emotional contagion. They literally tried to make people happier or sadder without their informed consent. No way, right? And finally, look at the Ashley Madison hack, which showed how the permanent, unforgiving nature of digital data can expose and devastate the lives of completely innocent bystanders, like spouses and children.
With our digital selves left this totally vulnerable, we really have to zoom out and ask a broader question. Whom do these systems actually serve? When data is collected on this unfathomable global scale and our privacy is this fragile, we have to ask who is actually reaping the rewards of this massive, largely unregulated extraction.
The answer, according to the sources, lies with data oligarchs. These are the mega companies like Google, Facebook, Apple, and Amazon that control unparalleled informational gateways to the masses. Because they control so much personal data, they wield power, wealth, and surveillance capabilities that are entirely comparable to those of large nation-states. They aren't just your standard businesses anymore. They are monopolies that literally shape human behavior on a planetary scale.
And the sources show us the alarming ways these tech giants actually act like unregulated states. For instance, top Silicon Valley companies face massive lawsuits over alleged collusion to fix wages and an agreement not to poach each other's employees, which artificially suppressed worker compensation. We also see companies like Google routinely scanning Gmail for illegal content, effectively acting as surrogate eyes for law enforcement. And of course, the Snowden leaks famously revealed the NSA's PRISM program, demonstrating a deep, quiet integration between private tech infrastructure and government mass surveillance networks.
But there are moments of pushback, like the right to be forgotten. This stems from a major ruling by the European Union, establishing that citizens actually have a right to demand search engines delete irrelevant or completely outdated information from their digital pasts. It's a really fascinating contrast to U.S. policies, which traditionally heavily favor industry self-regulation and free speech over data privacy. But it shows that the permanent memory of the internet absolutely can be legally challenged. This leaves us with a pretty urgent challenge moving forward. How do we govern these systems before they govern us? If we rely solely on the tech industry to self-regulate, we remain subjects to their data extraction. We have to shift away from fatalism, this common idea that technology is just an unstoppable runaway train, and move toward an active, democratic anticipation of our technological future.
And this brings us to how we frame the future of innovation itself. Right now, we largely live under what's called trickle-down innovation, where technological futures are imagined and designed by a handful of billionaires in Silicon Valley and then sort of scaled down for the rest of us. But contrast that with frugal innovation. These are technologies built from the ground up for the actual pressing needs of the global majority, like affordable water purification or off-grid communications. It asks us a fundamental question: who actually gets to imagine the future?
This brings us to a powerful argument from the text for taking control back. Quote, "To unleash the potential of the democratic imagination, contemporary societies will have to acknowledge, first of all, that technology is neither self-propelling nor value-free." The author strongly argues that we basically need the equivalent of a constitutional convention for technology. We need a fundamental, democratic reimagining of the rules, the rights, and the oversight governing our digital lives.
Which leaves us with this final provocative thought to take away from this explainer today. Will we remain paralyzed by fatalistic determinism, just accepting that whatever big tech builds is our inevitable destiny? Or will we shift to active self-determination, demanding a real democratic say in the infrastructures, the algorithms, and the extraction that shape our world? The curtain has been pulled back on the illusion. Now the choice of what to do with the reality is completely up to us. Thanks for joining me.